Hello YouTube. For anyone who's new here, my name's Mike. I'm going to be putting out farm related content, whether it be rabbits, like we're going to be learning how to build a hutch today in this video, quail, chickens, ducks, goats, honeybees, orchards, market gardens, canning and preserving. So if you're into that, hit that subscribe button, helps the channel out, give this video a like, and let's get right into this build. I've got some leftover material from the previous cage I built. It's a 1/2 inch by 1 inch wire mesh from Tractor Supply, and I'm going to be making my length 77 inches. See, that's 30 inches wide for my width. So 77 by 30, and I'm going to divide that up and see how many rabbits I'll be able to fit in there. Measure twice, cut once. Save yourself a headache down the line. And a little pro tip, always wear hearing protection and eye protection. So guys, I am all about being frugal, save a lot of my cutoffs. So this will make sense in a minute when you see me put it together, but I'm going to need 2 pieces on the end for my main box, as well as 2 pieces in the middle, because I'm basically going to split this 77 into 3 different cages. So I'm going to have a buck in one, and then a doe in the other 2. Well, a doe in each of the other 2. But it'll be 3 cages for this little rabbitry. So now I'm going to cut these at 27 inches, because I'm going to have 1.5 inches on each of my outer layer of the 2x4s, which will give me that 30 inch that I need. Let's get to cutting them. Basically, laying everything down, making sure that my lengths are proper. What I'm going to do is I'm going to zip 2 screws in each end, and I always pre-drill, just a good habit to get into. Doesn't have to be perfect, center it up, just a rabbit hutch. Gonna make my legs at 27 inches tall. Got my legs up, 27-inch legs. Makes it easier. Don't really have to like bend down as much to reach in when you're working with the rabbits. But I'm gonna get these legs on. I always pre-drill everything. Just makes it easier. You don't want to split any wood. So I usually put 3 screws in the diagonal and then 1 from the outside. Usually keeps it nice and strong. And if you guys are curious, I'm using deck screws 2.5 inches long for this build. So I'm measuring out, I got 77. I'm going to make one side for $1. I'm going to make it 24 by the 30, and then the other two sides are going to be 26.5 by 30 for the does. And I'll probably have different pens for when they kid or kit, just to give them a little extra space. It's hard doing this with one person. So I just need to get one more screw in each one of these now. I usually do one around first just to hold it in place, and then in case I need to tweak it at all, I'm able to do that. So I'm going to get that finished up, and I'll show you guys what's going on with the next step. So these pieces of metal usually have a curve to them, whichever way they unroll. What I try to do is line it up best I can, and once I have it lined up appropriately, I'll sink her down with a staple. Now, staple gun, and I use a little pry bar. I'll show you guys why in a second. So I'm going to start. Once we're secured enough, what I'm going to use the pry bar and just ever so slightly push through and give it a little pry forwards to help yourself get everything flattened down on the sides. Helps a lot. You can see I have a little bit extra right here, so I'm just going to snip that flush, or I could always hit it head down with a hammer. So each one of these cross members is actually going to have walling on it, so you're going to zip screws through there, and nice and rigid. This is 1/2 inch by 1 inch galvanized, I believe either 18 or 19 gauge. I'll pop a link down below for where I got it from Tractor Supply. So I'm going to get the walls cut up, and I'll put those together. So I know my plans are a little bit rough, but we need 4 pieces at 24 with an angle, 4 pieces 19 3/4. So the 26 3/4 is going to vary depending on how wide this is, but it should be about 3.5, give or take an eighth. When we cut these in half, because we're ripping all these 2x4s into 2x2s now. So we'll pull a measurement to get that measurement on the bottom for our bottom cross support. How about if I plugged it in? So now that everything's cut, you're going to want to make your pieces 19 3/4 with that angle facing forward, and then these guys make them 24 inches with the angle also facing forward. I believe I use a 10-degree angle on this. So we got front and backs cut. We have that is going to be our bottoms. We're going to cut it once we find the measurement, and then our top pieces right there are cut. If you guys could see this is the outside or the edge of the 2x4. I like to try to keep the cut edge facing to the inside of the rabbit cage. So I made the cut on this already for that 10% angle. Oversize these by about 1/4 of an inch because you're going to pull your measurement from down there up, mark it at 24, and try to keep that top piece to 24 inches. We're going to do the same thing with this piece, and our top measurement, it will be 19 3/4. I cut this piece to 20. So trying to do this with one hand, it's interesting. So on my marker, mark it right there at 19 3/4. Now we're going to cut it up to that mark. Alright, so it rained on me a little bit. Basically I'm going to take my two pieces, make sure that they are the correct way. So as I said, I have the outside of the 2x4. If the 2x4 was like this before I split it, that's usually the way I do it. Same thing, so the bottom one outside will be down and the top one will be out to the top. Basically I just put this onto the hutch, square it up, drill into it, sink it, and then I'll put usually 2 or 3 screws going down on the bottom to secure it in. Pro tip, make sure that the angle of your roof is facing the correct way so you don't have to re-drill or take screws out. Top piece doesn't have to be exact. I normally just put a thumb. And once I know it's good, I usually do about a thumb's worth for the top piece. Just try to make it equal as best as possible. Rain's really coming down now. I think that's gonna have to do it for right now. So we are experiencing some audio technical difficulties with this clip and the next clip. Here I'm basically explaining that each one of those cross beams is going to be the base for the wall, and I'm going to do a little snap change going from one video to the next, which is pretty cool if I don't say so myself. And bam! Look at that. So now I'm going to start talking about how to pull your measurements from in between each of these to get them to not be so lopsided, being that they're only sitting on a 2x2. Basically you're going to be pulling measurements in between each of those walls, and you're going to get that measurement and make a cut for the top, and that should level you out front and back. And then for your roof will just sit right over that. Shouldn't be a problem. It's not that far of a run that you need to have another cross member in the middle. Right here I'm showing a measurement in between the first and second wall. I believe I went with 21 7/8 here. because I am pushing against the part of my tape measure which takes away a 1/16. So that actually wound up getting my wall nice and level. My other measurements are going to be slightly different compared to the first one, being that they are different size openings. So all I'm doing here is lining up my studs, and then I'm going to drill at an angle. So I usually drill in first and then at an angle slightly to catch, making sure to avoid the screws that are pre-existing there. Once I get this side done with the roof beams, then I'm going to make a full-length cutout of ply, making sure that it's high enough to cover those beams up there. So I sort of like, I guess you could call it a dovetail, make little dovetail cutouts, so the back side will be completely sealed up, having minimal gaps, if any. I have a piece of plywood, and if you see, I have it held up by these quick grips. So what I'm going to do now, since it's a little bit longer, come on this other side. Hold on, bear with me. So being that this is held up now, I can come on this side, use a pen, mark that where I need to cut it, and then I'll make that cut with probably my skill saw. Then I'll put it back up like it is, find where I need to notch out, and I believe I'm making a 1 3/4 by a 1.5 inch notch for each one of the beams on the roof. Always get your safeties on when you're using a skill saw, and your ears if you cherish hearing. If you haven't used a skill saw as much as I have, please have somebody hold your wood and use 2 hands on that saw. Because if that was to kick, or you tweak it some which way, it's going to jump, and it's going to jump out, cut your cord off, or cut your fingers off, which would be worse. So to secure this, I'm just using 1 1/4 screws, and for some reason I don't do drill ones. I just send them. Usually do about 1 or 2 per section. Across, same thing on the bottom. It's not holding a lot of weight. Check for any gaps. If there's any gaps, you could always put another screw just to close it up a little bit, but that's looking good. Say that's good. We got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 screws. That's not terrible. So I'm using these deck mates, 1 1/4. Absolutely love these. Haven't had any one of them rust out or rot out on me on my other builds, and I have some Hutches that are about 2 years old now. Actually, almost 3 years old now. Alright, so next step is going to be take your measurements in between all the doorways, as well as height. I usually tend to run my horizontal pieces full length, and then I subtract that inch and, I believe it's actually 3.5, because I have them facing upwards like this, so I basically am minusing a full 2x4. So you measure your doorway, top to bottom, left to right, And what you're going to do is minus off a 1/2 inch. So you're going to have a 1/4 inch of clearance on each side. Then you'll put your hinges, you'll do your hardware cloth. Next step would be hardware cloth on the sides. If you're going to use hardware cloth to divide cages, you could do that now. Or what I choose to do, I actually use solid wood. With the solid wood, you don't have your bucks. If you had bucks caged together, you don't have them seeing one another getting excited or stressed out. So, and same thing, if you had a doe right next to your buck, you don't want them to be stressing all the time. But this cage is almost done, and then once I complete my doors, I'll cut my roof pieces, and those are as simple as just put them on and zip a screw through. Well, I've got my doors cut. I just got to piece them together. Like I said, I usually do my horizontals as the width, and then the verticals are just under, so that other horizontal will cover this gap. And I usually minus about 3/8 of an inch, just so I have clearance. I'm going to zip this together, and I will get this door on. Go ahead and flip this around. Feet on the other side. I'll always check it, make sure that it swings free and clear, which it does, and you can always adjust this as you go. Now I'm going to put some hinges on it. I'm going to throw a mesh on it, mesh this side, and then I'll hang it with the hinge. I use an angle grinder to cut this out. Basically take a measurement. The reason that I have my front as 24 inches is because I have a 24-inch width on my hardware cloth. So I know that's going to have the proper coverage. And then basically what I do is I line it up where I find suitable, and I'll just start tacking staples down it. Usually 3 or 4 aside is more than sufficient to hold your rabbit from going anywhere or keep any predators out. If you're worried, put a couple more on the bottom. That's where a raccoon would try to get at. And then if you see any loose edges, I usually staple those down too. So what I'll do is I'll put a link if anyone's interested in the staple gun that I use or the hardware cloth I use. I get it off Amazon. It's honestly, it's so much cheaper. It comes in as little as 65 cents a foot, and I think the most I've paid is $1.05 a foot. But it comes in a 100-foot roll, 100 foot by 2 foot, and it's great. So now, if you didn't feel like snipping all this, or you're gonna have an angle grinder, honestly, you can just bend this straight down, and you're going to put a roof on top of it anyway, and it's good to go. So I'm going to hardware cloth this side, hardware cloth the other side, and I'm going to actually be building walls with the remaining plywood that I have, and then each one of these will be an individual cage. I get these hinges from Home Depot. They're the Everbuilts. 2 inches more than enough. I don't think it has the weight that it holds, but they're zinc plated. They're not bad. I've had them outside for 2 years with no fail. I have them holding up big doors, small doors, and everything in between. When I'm getting my hinges on, I usually use the edge of the wood right here where they connect as my location. I make sure that this is flat against the outside as well as here, and I'll zip that in. One. I'm doing this standing up, you guys. I've built many cages. If you need a table, use a table. So I rip the cardboard and I use it as a shim sure I get my height up. Have your hinges coming up to the front. Should operate. Things open nice. Gives you full access to reach in there, change waters, hay, clean if you need to, grab your rabbit, and it swings and operates beautifully. So right here, I am talking about the walling. I usually try to get a 1/4 inch onto the front beam right there, just so there's coverage. You don't need to do that, but the rabbits will find those small gaps sometimes and chew. It just means that you might replace this board prematurely. So basically notch that out, make sure it's sitting nice. Usually go about a 1/4 inch forward. And now I will mark this little bunny ear, cut that off, no pun intended, and then I will zip some screws in this. So, this is the roofing material. I usually leave the cut end over here, so I have 2 factory edges. Hope you guys can see this. So I come in and I put dots on either side of the tape. Hopefully this is focused. So our length was 34. So my battery conveniently died. But I continue to put 34s all the way across. And then I'll come in with something like this, like a straight edge. Line it all up. And make my mark down. Give it a nice little line. Eyes and ears on. So I'm using corrugated sheet metal, guys. I cut it approximately the same length as this, 34 inches. I just lay it on top. I do 3 screws on this run. And then once I cut my other pieces, I do 3 screws down, usually on the beams. If I don't get beams, I go across, and I will sink some in the middle just so nobody goes plumbing. I'm sure you guys are realizing now that there's a bit of snow on the ground. It's because we had a couple of storms in between finishing this video. But we've got our new buck. He's a New Zealand broken pattern. He's about 3 months old right now. They'll be breeding in the end of April, beginning of May. And the roof is on. Basically what you're going to do is you're going to put a couple screws, and then this, where this edge lines up, you'll basically bring that other piece over, and you're going to put a screw down through both of them. So they're lined up over the back, side to side. Put a couple screws going down. And then this is still going to need another piece, and then some. I think I might just finish it with a piece of pallet wood. I've done that on my quail coops before. Nice. Once you get your latch on, see where it lines up in the middle. It's hard to do with one hand, so I'm going to get right back to you guys once I find the center mark, and I'm going to zip in the screw. I always zip in one first just to make sure I don't need to adjust, and that's it. So that opens up, swings on closed, which is nice. I appreciate you guys coming for the ride and sticking around till now. If you guys made it till now, man, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. We're going to be building quail hutches coming up soon. Also going to be building canning racks. So I'll link those videos here once I eventually make them. This video is definitely coming out first, but I will link them once they're out. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. Without you and the support from the community, I wouldn't make videos like this. I enjoy teaching people, and that's what it's all about. Hope you guys can make your rabbitry coops or hutches, whatever you want to call them, and just be responsible for growing your own food. Peace, guys.